Arcane was an amazing cinematic masterpiece. A masterpiece that, for me, deserves to be given a chance, just like how some of our heroes or champions were given a chance to redeem themselves. And, like Echo said,
It's not enough to give people what they need to survive. You have to give them what they need to live.
and Arcane does give us a reason to stick around in their universe because they know that we, as the viewers, want more of what they have, and they just do that. And at the end of the show, we end up wanting for more. The story concepts, plot progressions, visual art styles, and the voice acting were all on point. Arcane is one of the most well written animated shows I've seen in a while. Most, if not all, of their characters, in my opinion, are three dimensional. Even champions who are portrayed as being evil are multifaceted. And in the end, you really can't help but hope for everyone to have a happy ending because you see the struggles they all go through in their own regards. I mean, hell, Silco, and yes, Silco became one of my favorite characters at the end of this season, even though he's literally just a villain, but his whole character arc was done so meticulously well that you cannot help but sympathize with him and inevitably be sad when he dies in the end. I mean, for a show that's been around, or for a game that's been around for 12 years already, and as someone who used to play League of Legends back in the day, I have to say, I am beyond impressed. And to put the icing on top of the cake, Arcane just made League of Legends appreciated again. And just like what Vi said,
This city's gonna respect us.
and she's right. Arcane gave back the League of Legends fans back our love for the world, but it also gave the new fans who've never played the game before a new world that they can explore for the very first time. And not only did the show did all that, but I feel like in my heart, the show just proved to us that animations should be taken so seriously. Because in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, so please don't come at me, but in my opinion, animation is one of the most important storytelling art forms that has been created by us. And when you see the imaginations of the creators of the animations in full display, you can literally create your own world and different kinds of amazing stories. And that's the power of animations. If you let the creators of any form of animated media, whether it be a movie or a series format, you can do anything that's possible that you never see in a live action format. Because when it comes to live action, you're only limiting your creativity. And as I said a while ago, when you see the imagination of the animators unfold in full display, you can literally tell different kinds of stories that can't be done in a live action perspective. And what made Arcane stand out the most? Well, we can name a few like the story, the plots, the visual art styles, and the animations. Oh my god, I just can't stop looking at the animation of this show. It just looks so good. I'm speechless. Like, it's just so amazing. And the voice acting, phenomenal as well. But for me, the one thing that really stood most to me is the characters and the way they were portrayed, which I will be talking about them right now. Although, disclaimer, I will not be able to talk about everyone because I have different video ideas for those characters, especially Silco and Vander. I feel like if I put Silco and Vander in this video, I'll be doing them a bit of a disservice, and I don't want to do that to those two because I love those two characters, and I feel like I want to talk about Silco more, so I will be making another video on those two. So if you guys want to see more videos like this, you could help this channel, click the like, and hope you can subscribe and comment down below as well if you're a fan of the show as well. So yeah, and on to the video. So the first character that I'll be talking about is Victor. Yeah, Victor. For me, Victor is my favorite character. And I think people love Victor so much because he is a tragic hero done correctly, in my opinion. And there are two types of heroes. One is the dramatic hero, and second is the tragic hero. A dramatic hero is defined by having a characteristic that, despite all odds, allows them to succeed in their goals. For example, bravery, strength, and empathy, every trait that a dramatic hero has. And despite the adversity the dramatic heroes face, we as the audience can root for the dramatic hero because they have been guided solely that they will succeed because they have this one heroic trait. Tragic heroes are the inverse of that. Tragic heroes have one flaw that, despite the odds, will lead to their downfall. For Victor, it's his inability to accept his fate and his insecurity of contributing enough to the world due to the limited time in the world, further exacerbated by his physical ailments, restricting what work he can do. And a trick with tragedies and what makes them difficult to create as opposed to dramas is that you have present circumstances that get worse because of the tragic hero's flaw. Worse than they would have been if they had happened to anybody else. In this way, the audience kind of knows what's going to happen. Knowing the tragic hero's flaw and seeing it play out provides catharsis. To reach peak catharsis, perhaps an unforeseen outcome results that in moment is unexpected, but after looking at the circumstances and the tragic hero's flaw, makes total sense in hindsight. For Victor, we know that he does not want to accept that coming for him. We know that he is insecure about his contribution to the world and that he fears leaving this world contributing little or nothing. Based on this, his actions to push boundaries at the cost of his health, to seek ways to extend his life in the hopes of gaining more time to contribute, all make sense, and seeing what he becomes is tragically cathartic. Players of League know how he turns out, so there is an extra layer of dramatic irony that League players in the audience get to enjoy as they see the start of Victor's tragedy.
We lost ourselves, lost our dream. In the pursuit of great, we failed to do good.
And another champion who I want to compare Victor to is Jinx. And Jinx is also a great example of a tragic hero. We know that she desperately seeks affection and validation. We know that she feels useless, and that belief is further reinforced every time her group has to deal with setbacks due to her lack of fighting ability or inexperience in the fields. We know she desperately fears being alone. So when she ignores Vi's orders to stay away from the fight, it makes sense because of this flaw in her character. The twist and tragedy is when her actions make the outcome so much worse. But again, despite being a twist, the audience will accept it because it follows from Powder's flaw and the circumstances that this could be a possible result. The tragedy is that it was just a flip of a coin or fate of what the outcome could be, but despite things are in the hero's favor, this was the outcome and it makes sense because of their flaw. The wall was broken, Vander was free, Vi was safe. Well, for the moment, Powder's actions made the circumstances significantly worse, and those actions were caused by her tragic flaw. When tragedy is done right, it's cathartic, but it's difficult to get right because it needs to be believable. Realistic scenarios made worse by the character's inherent flaw. Otherwise, it's just bad stuff happening to the protagonist due to no real fault of their own. And the next champion who I want to talk about, which I am not sure if this dude is falling under the tragic hero category or the dramatic one. I'm gonna let you guys decide that on the comments. So I want to have a healthy discussion about this dude because this guy has a lot of mixed feelings. A lot of people don't like him, but some people understand him. For me, I'm in the middle. So, the character who I'm portraying right now is Jace. Yes, I know many people don't like him, and some criticisms of him I do understand. But for me, where I fall into the group of I like him or not, I am in the middle. But here's my reason. Hear me out. Jace is an idealist. He genuinely wants to harness the power through Hextech to make the lives of everyone better. In Runeterra, only people born with magical affinity are able to use it. As a result, the world has basically two classes of people. People who can use magic and people who can't. Because of the sheer amount of power magic provides, the people who can use it have naturally become rulers and tyrant warlords. Piltover was actually created as a refugee for non-magic people to get away from the wars and destruction caused by mages and magic. Heimerdinger, one of the founders, witnessed the Rune Wars, which was a massive battle between mages for the control of the runes that could create or destroy continents. The Undercity, or Zon, was actually created because mages wanted to connect two oceans. The fissures where Zon would later be located was created because of a civil works project. This is the kind of power we're talking about here. Enter Jace, who grows up in Piltover. We know from the series that he was most likely a gifted student that was given a patronage by Caitlyn's family in exchange for him to increase their prestige through his scientific advancements, only possible due to their patronage. From this, we can assume that whilst he has noble ideas and a hard work ethic, he probably had a very easy and sheltered life. As long as he continued to excel in his studies and focus on his science, anything he needed would be paid for. Like accommodations, education, materials for his experiments, and his own lab. All would have been paid through the patronage of the Kierman family. This is important, like really important, because it demonstrates that Jace has lived in a bubble that has allowed him to believe that you can achieve what you want through hard work and the strength of your principles. We see that outside of science, he doesn't really know how the world works. He is naive and doesn't understand why people wouldn't use scientific progress for just the benefit of humanity. He doesn't understand how people can be corrupt or how politics is about more than just ideals. His principles and values are correct, I'll give him that, but they are immature. So when he fumbles in the world of politics where he doesn't have the necessary understanding of the cunning and self-interest that is common in politics and corruption, he questions himself and possibly his values. Mel sees that Jace is naive and inexperienced, thus easily manipulated. Like there's knowing the manipulation game and playing, which is the level all the counselors are at, and then there's not even knowing that there is a game being played. That's the level Jace is at. A good contrast to compare Jace with would be Garrison. Garrison is a mature idealist. She still holds on to higher values like protection of the people, but she is experienced enough with the world that she knows that she has to play the game if she even wants a chance at fulfilling her values, but she knows where the line is for her and she will not cross it. That defines maturity. Whereas an immature idealist like Jace would allow the line to be blurred or even erased as they are challenged by the disparity between their idealized world and reality. She makes peace with the Undercity, and it's shown with her negotiations with Vander, and she has an understanding from maturity that the Undercity is full of just people. She's past the point of categorizing people as being good or bad, and is at the point where she understands that everyone has their own story and things are just much more complex. That's why she doesn't see the people of the Undercity as quote-unquote enemies. stopping her from protecting her people.
I'm an enforcer. For me, knowing how to handle this weapon means being able to protect people.
She genuinely wants to make the world safe for everyone, including the Undercity, but again, she's not naive like Jace in a sense that she believes that she can make it so just through the power of her conviction. No, she has matured enough to see things as they are. People just being people while still holding on to her values. Jace is basically an immature idealist. Someone who holds lofty values and thinks that they will be realized just through their own righteousness. Unfortunately, the world doesn't work that way. Other people have other values, and if they don't value the same thing as you, then to them your values on their own don't influence them at all. Oftentimes when realizing this truth, idealist becomes bitter and gets angry at the world for not meeting their idealized standard, or they sacrifice their values and decide to work with the system believing that getting some results is better than no results, abandoning their values and essentially selling their souls. Garrison is one of the few mature idealists who understands how the world works, yet in spite of it doesn't abandon their values and still tries to realize them through engaging with the world in a non-spiteful way. Well, I guess we'll see how Jace ends up. And the next character who I'm going to be talking about, and sadly she's one of those controversial ones, which I don't think she should be, but I do understand where the others are coming from, because half of them like her or half of them hate her. In all honesty, for me, I like this character. So if you're one of those people who don't like this character, can you all please hear me out first, okay? Just hear me out, okay? And if you don't agree with me, then I want to see your comments down below and prove me wrong. So this character is Vi, and for me, Vi is one of those characters where she's the strong-headed protagonist type of character. She fights to give the people she cares and loves around her a chance for a better life. That's why she has the strong leader persona. And at the same time, you see the sensitive side of her where she empathizes. She grows up with the pressure and responsibility to protect the people in her life. In the beginning of the show, we see how Vi's life with her sister Powder begins with a tragedy, and you can see at a young age that Vi would protect Powder from any harm coming their way since they lost both their parents. Vi has to be and has no choice but to act like a strong-minded protagonist at a very young age. Whenever her plans go sideways, she gets lectured by Vander about not only her, but her adopted siblings could have gotten hurt for her recklessness of actions. And when Vander gives Vi his talk about responsibility, it adds a lot more pressure on Vi because she realizes that her actions could endanger the lives of her loved ones, and to be given a huge task at hand and that amount of responsibility at a very young age is very daunting for me, and a daunting task for a teenager. I don't think teenagers should be given that big of a responsibility because they're still at a young age where they should be discovering who they really are at heart instead of being something that they don't want to be. But at the same time, they have no choice because the life that they are living won't give them that chance. Kids should never be given the responsibility of an adult. As you hear Milo complaining about Powder being twice her age, and sadly Milo in a sense makes a point, but just because he has a point does not make it a good thing. Powder needing to act like an adult is inherently a bad thing for me. That's why it leads me back to Jinx being a tragic hero. Going back to the main topic of this chapter, I do apologize for the shift of tone. I want the best for these people. I just want them to be happy. But we know that's not going to happen. So going back, I think this is where the meat and potato of the issue lies between. Because I feel like people don't like the relationship of Caitlyn and Vi. I don't know why, but in my opinion, I'm a straight dude and I love their relationship. I think they're perfect for each other. And I'd like to maybe add another perspective to Vi's word in the rain scene, because I don't think she necessarily believes the word she's saying 100% at that moment, because I think half of it is to push Caitlyn away so she can go about things on her own, like she always has. Vi's stubborn and hard-headed, and has motivation to go take down Silco and get Powder back, which aren't in the line with how others feel. Vi's motivation to go after Jinx can be paralleled with Victor's fight for his own life. I mean, they're both doing things that are against their morals, pushing those closest to them away in order to achieve an end goal that they will aim to achieve at all cost. Vi in her mind is doing this all for Powder, so I don't think she has hopeless about the two sides being irreconcilable, but she will represent it to Kate in that moment if she feels Kate will hold her back. I mean, how could she possibly go after Jinx and talk Powder down knowing what Kate symbolizes to Jinx? I think all of this is backed up by Vi's obvious care that she still has for Caitlyn during the dinner scene. There's no love loss, there's no obvious mentality shift in how much she cares for Caitlyn. When push comes to shove and Vi's true feelings about her are forced to come out, she's shown to deeply care for her and fear for her loss. That doesn't mean like someone who feels like her and Kate are oil and water. Vi gives that speech because Vi doesn't know how to work alongside people. She's always been the protector, always a loner, sacrifices herself so others don't have to experience pain or fear. It's one of her virtues, but also ultimately her biggest downfall. I mean, even Jace notices it, and he was right. Without Kate, I genuinely think Vi dies in that dinner scene. I think Silco wins the fight for Powder, and maybe Silco even manages to silence her in the manner that Powder can't stop. And we jump into the next and last character who I will be talking about in this video, Caitlyn. Now, I can't really say much about Caitlyn because she wasn't given that much screen time for me to really deep dive into her backstory. Although, all I can say about Caitlyn is that she's pure-hearted, genuinely idealistic, but she's kind of like Jace as well. They're both naive because they've been sheltered by their rich family. I mean, all she ever wants is to have an agency that specializes in protecting people, and I got no problem with that. It's like someone set out to make a character whose foundational building block is just her pure compassion, and I got no problem with that. I say that because I don't expect a character like that in this show. No. I did not expect her to be like that, especially in this show, which is really unforgiving and often cruel sometimes. What I can say positively about Caitlyn is her relationship with Vi. These two are perfect for each other. They're absolutely perfect together. And I'm not just saying that just for the sake of it. I love how strong and powerful they are in front of people. But when they're alone with one another, they knock down each other's walls. And you see how tender they are with each other. With how Caitlyn treats Vi's wounds and holds Vi up when she's injured, and with how Vi gently brushes her hand onto Caitlyn's face to show her affection. I love how Caitlyn just stared into Vi's eyes after giving Vi the shimmer, and you could feel the tension of a kiss was going to happen. Believe me, I felt that. I love how Caitlyn always vouched for Vi to her mom and the council, and she isn't afraid to show the ugly truth of fears worth oppression Zon was going through due to Topside always benefiting over the power on the community of Zon. And I love the contrast between the mentality of these two characters. Caitlyn has lived a sheltered life in the nobility, and her upbringing has taught her to be respectful of the authority and the law. Because for her, the enforcers embody the peacekeeping and the progress that Piltover enjoys a lot. In her eyes, Vi is a brute from the underground city who does not respect anything or any other than her barbarous concepts of strength and pride. For her, it is unthinkable that the police abuse their authority and behave like thugs. Vi, who has lived in a world in which force gives respect and it allows you to survive, the concept of rank and law are a little more than a nice uniform in which the enforcers used to separate themselves from other goons. No one has tied her for any crime, nor were the enforcers tied for the extrajudicial killing for her parents. To her, Caitlin is a naive brat who doesn't know shit about hardness of real life, and she thinks her rules can really be applied outside of her sheltered world. But as they spend more time, they realize that they have more in common than they think. They both have good heart and have a leadership mentality that leads them to take responsibility for taking care of others and bringing justice to their world. And to me, what really solidified their relationship, and I hope I'm not the only one thinking about this, but if you've been sheltered and kept away from the entire world by the people you grew up with, especially your parents, and you've met someone who has opened up a new world that you've never seen before and opens up a new bridge of possibility that you can explore within yourself, that gives you freedom to create a life you want for yourself. Instead of being catered to a life you have to live, you can live the life you want to live. And with the progression of these two characters have, I can fully say, and I can 100% say this, but Vi gave Caitlin the world, and in return, Caitlin saved Vi from the life that she's living in the past. And the world that they live in, it's not perfect. It's really dark. But that doesn't matter, because when you have someone you care for, the world of darkness doesn't matter, because you see the brightness within each other. And when you realize how bright you can be in a very sad world, you'll forget that you're living in a world of pain, because you have that someone who will always have your back, no matter how things get tough. Now, I understand why some people think that their relationship felt rushed, but the reason why they feel that way is because they didn't get many screen time, in my opinion, especially Caitlyn. And the reason is because the story revolves around the sisters, both Vi and Jinx. But in my opinion, the relationship felt normal. Like, it felt normal to me. Would I want to see more screen time with these two? Absolutely. Yes, I want more screen time with these two. But the main storyline in this show are technically the sisters, so it makes sense, okay? I feel like they did the best job with how to potentially build up a relationship with these two characters, and especially with the time they were given. Again, it felt kind of rushed, but people have to understand the reason behind it. And knowing that this show took 6 years to be made in production, or probably more than 6 years, Arcane for sure took its time, and I am glad it did not rush anything. Knowing that this franchise has a big fan base, I'm really glad they took their time to craft a well-crafted show. And let it be known, everybody, let it be known, it doesn't matter if it takes long to make something. Lord of the Rings, for example, that took its time, and look what we got from that. Arcane took a while to make, 6 years. And look, we got something of a masterpiece in our hands. Because when you rush productions, it leaves you with a quick product and quick money. But what do you want to be remembered for? Bringing in the money the studio wants and then no one rewatching your product because it just wasn't that great? Or do you take your time and make something beautiful that will bring the money and even more, not because of a name, but because it was built and done properly out of respect? Mankind sure used to do that in the past. It was about making the world better back then. Today, it's more about building a product that breaks quickly or providing a service no one is actually particularly happy with. We create more inconvenience in our daily lives now so we can sell more and keep the income. But what happened to making something great? And I hope in the future, and I hope starting right now, we get shows like this that don't treat their audience like mindless robots, but as human beings. Just from the emotions that these characters are showing, you can understand what they are going through. And maybe the reason of that is because probably one of you guys are going through the same thing as they are. And honestly, I see myself in one of those characters. And it's scary. But honestly, I'd rather be scared of something than not be scared of anything. And I don't want to end this video in a bad note. And I know that this show kinda ended in a bittersweet ending. But I'm gonna say this, and this has nothing to do with Arcane. This is just my personal thing. But if any of you guys watching this video are going through something right now, I just want you guys to know that I'm here. And if you are watching this video and you just happen to stumble upon it, just know that you're not alone. I'm right here. And I may not know you, but in the future, I would love to get to know all of you. And in the words of Vander, to whoever's watching this, if you are going through something, I just want you guys to remember, I'm proud of you. Always will and always have been. And you've got a good heart. Don't ever lose that. No matter how the world tries to break you, always remember that you're not alone.